Let's give people 30 seconds more and then we'll kick off. Okay, so let's kick off. So thank you very much for coming, everybody. Hopefully you should be able to see the screen, the slides on screen at the moment. So I'm just going to kick off. Firstly, it would be remiss of me not to say happy birthday to Buckinghamshire Council, 1 year old today. I would like to say that our website was 1 year old, but actually we're a little older than that because we went early. We actually had our MVP launch slightly before vesting day last year, so we're a little bit older than one. But happy birthday to us anyway. So show and tell 26, or possibly show and tell 1, depending on how you want to look at it. We've been running a program of work on the designing and building a new website for the local authority for the last 15 months or so, maybe even slightly longer. But actually, we've just started a new phase of that, our phase 2, new contracts, new people in place, that kind of thing. So you can either call this 26 or number 1. So why do we do show and tells? So they're one of the agile products that we use to keep people updated on what we're doing and provide an opportunity for feedback. They're informal, they're relatively short, they're quick, punchy, try to get through things. And what we want to do is share what we're thinking, what we're doing, what's coming next, and then give you any opportunity for questions and feedback. One of the things that we always approach these things with, everything that we do is agile and user-centered. So we're measuring, we're learning, we're building, and then we go around that circle again. And where you start on that circle is dependent on which particular products you're launching at the time. But you're not doing everything at once. You're doing small iterations. And our plan is to release what we call minimum viable products and then build on those. So we're not going to do everything big bang. We release something, we test it, we find out whether it's useful, we get feedback, and then we iterate on it again and again and again. But overall, we have one single vision. We will give our residents more free time by making everything they do with the council faster and easier. So I've said that we're in phase 2 now. What are we doing in phase 2? We're really doing 2 major things. We're rationalizing and migrating the content from all the legacy websites. So prior to Buckinghamshire Council, there was obviously the 4 districts and the county websites. We have to migrate all that content, and that content comes to about 4,500 pages, and we need to do that by April 22. This is a Cabinet Office edict that says they're going to shut down our domains effectively, so that's causing a real hard stop to that. But in addition to that, we want to develop new digital services and offerings to improve the outcomes for residents and make services more cost effective. And that's the sort of thing where we're looking at deep integrations into areas such as waste, planning, and revs and bends. So some of those more deep dive services we'll be looking at in more detail. So quickly, I just wanted to talk about who's doing this. So we've got a large cohort, both internally and externally. The digital team, we've got myself, Jez and Dominic, who I believe are all on the call. But we're also supported by a huge raft of people, both externally and internally. So on Boxed are our delivery partners. You'll hear on occasions from Tom Harrison, who's our delivery manager, and from Sarah Morris, who's our designer. We have Torchbox as technical partners. Nick is on the call, our senior developer, as well as Tibor, who has the slight advantage of not coming to afternoon things because he lives in Hawaii, but means that we can face the sun with development, which is really useful, and other back-end and front-end developers from them as well. We have Scroll on board who do content design and editing. So David and Jen, who are on the call, work with services to provide new content design and information architecture, which we put onto the website. We also have the web content team. We work closely with people like Colin Harris and Mike Muris and people like that in developing services and products that we deploy. We're also the digital function is part of the service improvement team. So we actually sit within Joe Bashnonga's directorate, and we work closely with our business improvement partners, service improvement partners, sorry, to make sure that we align ourselves to the programs that they're creating as well. And every service team in the council will be involved in this over the next 12 months. So what have we done in the last couple of weeks? It's 2 to 4 weeks rather than 2 weeks. Just quickly, we'll take you through some of the stuff that we've done. I'm actually going to pass over now to Mike, who's going to talk us through some of the work that's been done on the Family Information Service, which hasn't gone live strictly in the last 2 weeks, excuse me, but has bedded in certainly in the last 2 weeks. So passing over to Mike. Mike, if you want to share your screen, that'll work for me.
Just going to give it a go. All right, hopefully you can see that. Anybody see?
Yep, looks good.
Yeah, it's good.
Excellent. Okay, hello everybody. The Family Information Service website, for anybody who wasn't familiar with it before, is part of our core content, a lot of information related to children, young people and families. And it was on a completely separate platform. It was in a different environment to our main websites. And the decision was taken early last year that it would be one of the first areas to move onto our new Wagtail platform. There were two main elements to the website: the actual web content and the directory. And a lot of work has been done with partners, external partners who were looking at building a new directory, and with others who were looking at the content and what we can do with that. There was a lot of content on the website that has been built up over many years, and there was a potential for confusion between the directory information and the web content. There have been many challenges to try to make sure that this is going to provide an easier way to find the information for people. Young people's information was in various places, and if you went to the wrong place, you may not find something that's relevant. And so the decision was taken to pretty much rewrite the information and to make sure that it's more focused. It's been a huge project, and I'd like now to just thank everybody that was involved, including David, Jen, Sarah, and especially the FIS team for all their huge amount of work that they put into it. We decided that it should have a content-focused approach so that people can go and find out information, and then that will lead them on to the directory. I'm going to give you a quick idea of how that can work. As you can see, this is the new website, and you've got a direct link into the directory to have a look through that, and you've also got the various top level categories. The first one here, childcare and early years, that's a absolutely key area for the council and for the Family Information Service. And you can see if you go into this area, if, for example, you wanted to find childcare, you can go straight into the directory. But if you're fairly new to the whole thing and you don't know which kind of childcare you want or anything like that, then you can take a more granular approach. And for example, as you can see here, you can go through your childcare options. And again, you can have a direct link here, which if you just want to look at local childcare providers. But if you're not quite sure about the different types of childcare and what you may need, then you can click through there, and this will then give you clear explanations of registered childcare, unregistered childcare, childcare in your home, and the various options that you have. And again, you then have the opportunity to click through to the directory. If I click here, then you can see that it automatically, we can have saved searches, so you can have a deep, fairly granular view of the directory, or you can have a top level view, which will just have more of a show me everything. There's a map, so you can have a map view if you're looking for a location based answers to your queries. And as you can see here, there are a lot of facets that you can use to try and narrow down if there are particular SEND needs that you have, or particular ages that you're looking for. Then you can narrow down your search with that. I'll just go back up to here. Again, just to give you an idea of the way that this can be more of a granular search, if you are looking for, Second, if you're looking for, say, for example, parenting courses, you might want to go to family support, and then you can see there's a view our parenting courses page. And this again will tell you a little bit about the parenting courses. So obviously there are a lot of different terminology, and it will tell you what it is, and then there's a link straight into the parenting courses, which will then give you contact details. You can click on here, it will give you categories, it will tell you where to go, and very often link to the website of the organization as well. So the way that we've designed and built this is to make it so that the information flows, and to try and make it as easy as possible for people to go straight through from one place to another. The content's much more cohesive now. There is still some content which is children and young people's related, which isn't on this website. So we've integrated the search. For example, if you were looking for fostering, the key fostering information is on the main BC site, but as you can see, the top level here is the fostering site, so you can go straight there, but it will also include results from the Family Information Service. So for example, the 30 hours for foster carers, which is about childcare funding, you've got the option for that as well. And the final thing that we tried to do to make the content more easy to see where you wanted to go is to separate out. There was quite a lot of technical content before on the website, and strategies, policies were mixed in with top level information that may be useful to parents. So we took the decision to move the more technical content onto our school's web portal, but we didn't want to hide it. We want to make it easy for people to find things, but as I said, it's crucial that we're transparent in everything that we do. So I'll show you a quick example of that. To look through special educational needs, under Get Involved, there's an area under our local SEND improvement, and there's a lot of work going on in the organisation at the moment for SEND improvement, and this has all been rewritten in a simple way, so it will tell people very clearly exactly what we're trying to do. But there's a link here, more about our local SEND improvement work, and that will take you to Schools Web, where you can have the full details and our full SEND strategy. Once again, thank you to everybody who's put so much work into this. The website's launched. I'm proud of it. I think it looks good. And,
thanks, Mike.
That's it from me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, so I will start sharing my screen again. I'd also like to echo the support that we had from the Family Information Service was brilliant. It was a real, not struggle to get it over the line, but certainly there was a lot of work that went into it. Some late nights and some weekend working that I know that everybody took part in, so I'd really like to thank those teams. I'm quickly going to share as well, as Mike mentioned, we've now gone live with Family Information Service. We've also gone live with the, I can find it, with the Care Advice Bucks site. So this has gone live in the last couple of days. So this is just an example of where we've been able to use some of the same templating and some of the same information architecture that we used on Family Information Service for Care Advice Bucks as well. And as Mike mentioned, this brings everything under the same content management system. So we're able to manage our content more effectively, both within the adults team, but also within our own team, but also means that that continuity of search works across different websites as well. So just quickly to show you Care Advice Bucks as well. I'm just going to pop back to next up is revisiting the information architecture. For this, I'm going to pass over to Sarah, who's one of our designers from Unboxed. Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. If you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So revisiting the information architecture. So as we have seen, so as we launched the FIS macro site and also did quite a lot of work here and there, we recently thought it was actually the right time to ask ourselves a very simple question, which is, how do users expect to find content on the Buckinghamshire website? So from it, what we did is essentially deploying some UX research methodology. We'll talk about it in a minute. And then this drove us to actually revisit and review the information architecture. So for those who are not familiar with the term information architecture, it's essentially it's a practice which consists in organizing, structuring, and labeling the content so that we do reflect user need and user expectation. The main goal behind it is, well, obviously to let people self-serve on the website so they can find things by themselves. The second goal behind it is to hopefully reduce the need for the user to pick up the phone and contact the council directly. So next slide, please. So here is an overview of the activities we have been doing. So it's in two phases. So we'll talk about the first one with the 3 different icons at the top and then the second one at the bottom. So as I was saying, it's all started when we started to work on FIS, so back in August. So our content designer, David, actually launched a card sorting exercise to understand a little bit better how people expect the content to be organized. And we had a total of 117 participants to take part into it. Then the second things we have been doing at the beginning of this year was to actually look at the analytics. So what we did essentially is looking at 7 months of analytics. So we're talking about a lot of data. We're talking about the visit of over 233,000 users on the website, so which is enormous. And then from there, we started to already work and reorganize the content, to also rewrite the content a little. But we thought, okay, it's great. We've got everything backed up with data. We've got all the best intention in the world. We still need to expose the user to our work just to make sure it does make sense. So what we did then at the beginning of the year, we organized a first click testing. I prepared an example for those who have not seen the latest show and tell. I think it's really fascinating. The first click testing is essentially about understanding how people look for the content on the website and what do they expect and where do they expect it. And for this, we had exceptional participation. We had 131 participants. So it really gave us an idea about the trends, about how people actually think about content. And then with all those different pieces of research, we moved on to the second phase, which is what we see at the bottom, which was about reorganizing the content, but also rewriting the content. So next slide, please. Thank you. So yeah, for those who have not seen the latest show and tell, I just wanted to share this one because I think it's really fascinating to see how the click testing has been done. So what we did was to take a very simple example from, I don't know, daily life, let's say, and see how people will look for the content when exposed to the homepage. So this is an example about, I'm going to read it. You want to book school transport for your child, and then where would you click? So people who are exposed to the homepage that we put together, which is on the right-hand side. And what happened is that most people, when they think about school transport, will click mostly on children, young people, and families. So for which we had 66% of our participants doing so. But then what we found out, which was even more interesting for us, was that 21% will actually click on parking, roads, and transport. At the moment, the school transport is basically niche within the school and learning. So it's great, it's fantastic, and it works. However, we didn't know that 1% out of 5 will actually associate school transport with parking, roads, and transport. So to respond to those people's expectation, one of our recommendation is to indeed place a link on school transport within the category of parking, roads, and transport. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is very much about the scope of the project. So as I was saying, we revisited the homepage. We also revisited the second layer we call it the index page or category page. And we did a few things. One was reorganizing it, both, but also rewriting if need be. So we rewrote sometimes the category. We also rewrote sometimes the subcategory or hyperlink, which we can see in blue on the right-hand side. And also we revisited the subcopy, so it is user-friendly. Now, if we talk about the scope, I'd like to also manage your expectations about what's in and what's not in the scope. So as I was saying, so it's very much about content reorganization, rewriting the content, but it does not include all categories. We didn't work on all categories at all. It's also excluding rewriting anything coming after this page, so after the index page or category page. We didn't touch it. That is something we would love to review and work on later on with each services. It's obviously excluding anything related to the look and feel of the website. And then most importantly, just in case, nothing, absolutely nothing has been deleted. So don't worry about it. Next slide, please. Yeah, so on this one is a quick overview. On the left-hand side is the current web page, homepage. And on the right-hand side are the categories for which we have recommendations to revisit. Not everything, so I'm going to pause perhaps a bit. Not everything is revisited straight on the homepage. So we shuffled some categories, very little. We also relabel certain categories, but also subcategories. However, there are some categories like, for example, planning and building control on the top right, which is exactly the same. There is no difference whatsoever here on the homepage. However, we do have recommendation on the index page behind it. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I've moved on. Are you not seeing it?
Yeah, no, it works. It's perfect. So when we think about content design, I just wanted to walk you through quickly the best practice we are following. So as I said, we work based on data, on UX research, as we have seen with the click testing, for example, the data, the card sorting. But the other thing also, which is extremely important, is best practices. So when we think about content design, the first thing we have to think about is the findability. And this is the main point, actually, making it findable to anyone. So we are thinking about navigation, search, grouping the content. Connected. So on connected is very much about applying a certain logic for which the card sorting and the click test really help us out to understand how people think about content. It has to be helpful so they can self-serve. It has to be clear, so it can't be down to interpretation. And on this one, we think a lot about accessibility as well. And then the last bit, and not least, is to make it human. So when a content designer writes the content and reformulate it, it's essentially about empathizing and making sure that it's not too robotic, even though it's basically a website to a user. It has to be human. It has to embrace the context in which a user might actually look for the content. So next slide, please. So here is a quick example. So I picked on Care for Adults. So for Care for Adults, basically on this one, we found out through the click testing. So we gave basically an example, which was you want to look for help with your grocery shopping. And what we found out is that when we ask about help for grocery shopping, 35% of the people associated straight away with community and safety, 25% with coronavirus support and information, which obviously is very contextual because we keep talking about coronavirus and hopefully we are not going to talk about it for long. But most importantly, we've got 18% thinking straight away and clicking therefore on Care for Adults. However, at the moment on the website, there is no link to the Bucks directory in which we can find this information. under the Care for Adults page. So here it's very simple. We simply recommended to add a link and to call it Find Adult Care Support Near You. Another thing as well is make a payment. So at the moment, we've got a link, an hyperlink, which is called Pay an Invoice, and underneath it says you can make a payment using your credit or debit card. Unfortunately, it doesn't really follow best practice, simply because it doesn't provide enough context. So our review transformed it into make a payment, and then the subcopy underneath, pay an invoice for adult care services. So we bring a bit of context using your credit card or debit card. It's very subtle, but it just makes a difference to bring more context to the user so they know why they're here and what to do. Two last ones, an hyperlink which is called Better Lives, which might not mean what it means for everybody. So what we decided to do is to translate it and simplify it into help for vulnerable adults. So anyone who is looking for help for a vulnerable adult or even themselves can actually reflect straight away on this. And then the last bit, we found out that there is this category called adult social care equipment, which is an hyperlink which is currently sitting under schools and learning. However, from the research, it doesn't really work. So what we decided to do was to place it within the Care for Adults, their family and carers, so people can actually find any information regarding adult social care equipment within the Care for Adults category rather than schools and learning. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm aware that we're actually running short of time, so we've got 3 minutes left. So I'm going to quickly run through the next stuff that we've got. We talked previously in another show and tell about the campaign page, but I'd just like to update you as to where we are with it. Why do we need one? Well, we stick very closely to the design patterns we've developed, and they're very closely aligned with the GDS design standards. We use very little imagery to speed things up. We know it helps with the research tells us this works best for residents in terms of finding what the information that they want. But we know there are occasions when something different is needed. Fortunately, GDS has a pattern for this as well, so it's a little bit more colourful. It's designed, as I say, as a promotional tool for the comms team to use, so it's time limited and it's there to carry out a specific purpose, which is normally about pushing people towards other information on our website. We did some mock-ups. This is the mock-ups that we provided comms team in order for them to feed back to us. And we're now at the situation where we're just about to go live with this. We should be live within the next week or so. I will quickly pop onto the page which is sat at the moment. So this is our page which is sat on staging, going through user acceptance testing at the moment. So as you can see, we have the ability to embed video. We have the ability to link off to other areas. And it's a little bit more visual. It's a little bit more compelling, and hopefully gives us that ability for the comms team to send out campaigns to make sure that we're engaging with our residents in sometimes a little bit more of a visual way. These pages don't sit within the structure of the website as such. They are searchable externally, but not internally. So we're hoping that these can be used to promote things that we have going on, whether that's reopening of high streets or obviously as this is information about coronavirus. So that's the I'd just like to, the very last thing that we talked about is how we're working with services. So for us, we've obviously got a bit of a mammoth task to do over the next 12 months or so. So engagement is going to be key for this. We're obviously looking to work closely with you. We've got a roadmap which is constantly being iterated. I have a meeting in about 3 minutes to talk about what the next iteration of this will look like. But it's really important that everybody in the organisation feels part of this journey. We've started that engagement with some of the teams, as we'll talk about in our next show and tell, around highways and parking and information architecture and content around that. We're working with planning, Revs and Ben's teams and client transport, as well as doing some of those deeper dives on areas such as waste. It's important to stress we won't be doing everything, but we will be doing the most important things, and we will be talking to every service pretty much over the next 12 months. So where do we go from here? We publish an open roadmap of what we're doing. Just in the process of updating this for our new batch of work, but ultimately it's there for for anybody to see. You can go along and have a look at that. Next steps for us, communicating recommendations on the IA, continue working on parking and highways information architecture, and onboarding new services, clarify the roadmap with Cabinet, which is something I have to do in the next few weeks, and releasing our campaign template. Any questions quickly? And I'm aware that people are probably leaving in their droves for their next meeting, sadly. If anybody has any questions, please either put them in the chat and I'll respond there, or ask. If not, I will thank everybody for coming. The recording of this is available. If you want to go and look at it again, or if anybody colleagues that you want to see it and haven't been able to see it this time, I did send out a single invite this to try and coax as many people into this show and tell as possible. However, these happen every 2 weeks, so you will see a recurring invite coming. So great if you can attend some of them. If you can't, then don't worry about it, but we'll see you every couple of weeks. With that, thank you very much.